Okay, this is a review of 3.1 through 3.4 quiz, so let's go ahead and get started. Number 1, all real numbers greater than or equal to 55. It says what inequality represents the verbal expression. First of all, greater than or equal to is where you have the arrow pointing to the right and you have an underline underneath. So I'm just going to circle it right here. Kind of see my cursor. As C is answer is C. X is greater than or equal to 55. Okay, number 2, 10 less than a number, n, is less than 17. Well, if you have 10 less than a number, you start with n, and then you subtract 10, and then it's less than 17. So the answer is going to be D. Alright, moving on down. Number 3, which number is a solution of the inequality? 7 is less than or equal to 3x minus 2. So what I'm going to do is I need to pull up my other window so I can do this. I have number 3 here is 7 is less than or equal to 3x minus 2, and I have a couple of choices. First of all, let's try a couple of them. Let's try B, which happens to be 1. So I put in 3 times, I'll do this in a different color, 1 minus 2. So 7 is less than or equal to 3 minus 2. 7 is less than or equal to 1. Is that true? No, it's not. So it is not B. Okay, now I'm going to try another one. Let's try one of the easier ones, which happens to be 3. So let's try 3. So 7 is less than or equal to 3x minus 2. And I try 3, which is choice D. I just didn't want to mess with the fractions first. I can save you some time. So I have 7 is less than or equal to 9 minus 2. 7 less than or equal to 7. Is that true? Absolutely, because 7 actually is the same as 7. So the answer is D. Number 4, a quick talk about this one. B is greater than 7 over 2. 7 over 2 is 3.5, just so you're aware, of 3.5. And so it is choice B, first of all, because it's at 3.5. But then it is also to the right because the arrow points in that direction. And it's an open circle if you look at choice B. Open circle because it's not or equal to. As you look down at number 5, just to talk through this, x is less than or equal to negative 5. So first of all, find all the ones that have negative 5. All of them. Second of all, the underline on the less than or equal to, the or equal to part tells you that it is a filled in circle. So now your choices are A and B. And then lastly, less than goes in the negative direction. So once again, the answer is B. What inequality represents this graph? Okay, first of all, it's about 1.5. So it's pretty obvious that A, B, C, and D all give you the value 3 over 2. And so you should know that's 1.5. And it happens to be the positive, so you can rule out A. And then B says it's greater than or equal to 3 over 2. And so or equal to means you fill it in, which that is the case. And then greater than points to the right, so that absolutely is the case as well. So one more time, the answer is B. Going on down to number 7. What are the solutions to this? Well, first of all, we're going to have to solve it. So on my other page, I'll do a new one. Number 7. First of all, I've got to solve this. So Q minus 1/2 is greater than 1/3. My first step, I need to add a half to both sides. Add a half to both sides. And I get Q is greater than, if you would go ahead and add those together, it would give you, let's see, 2 over 3. I'll go ahead and do a little bit of work here. That would give you 2 over 6 plus, you can just use a calculator, 3 over 6 is going to actually give you 5 over 6. And so I get Q is greater than 5 over 6 for my value. And then how you graph that, and that's actually choice C down here, but how you graph that is if you have 1 here, 0 here, 2 here, you have just in front of your 1, which would be 5/6, and going to the right. Okay? For number 8, I'm going to go ahead and solve it really fast and then graph it. Basically just solving your graphing. C is greater than negative 2. And so then I graph that. Here's my graph, negative 2. bigger in that direction, -4, -1, and 0. I then have an open circle at -2. It's greater than, so it goes to the right, positive direction. And that's the graph. And you can figure out which one that was. For number 9, got to solve it and graph it. It says, what are the solutions? Graph it. I need to, first of all, subtract 1/3 to move it over to the other side. Subtract 1/3. Use a calculator, but I'll just kind of do it by hand. If I have 3/6 is what that is, and then minus 2/6, I get that that's 1/6. Okay, so I get 1/6. Q is greater than 1/6. How you graph it is you simply have 0, 1, 2, maybe put a negative in there. I then put an open circle right just above 0, because that's about where 1/6 is, and I go to the right. If you look at number 10, it says, suppose you had D dollars in your bank account. You spent $7 but have at least $36 left. How much money did you have initially? Write and solve an inequality that represents the situation. So for number 10, I started with D dollars, and I spent $7. That's where you have that -7. But I have at least $36. When you think at least means greater than that value or equal to. That means at least. Then it asks me, and that's the $36. Then it asks me to solve it. So I simply add 7, I add 7, and I get D is greater than or equal to 43. And then, so that actually ends up being my answer, which is choice B. For number 11, I'm just going to go ahead and read this. Number 11 says your class hopes to collect at least 375 cans. So right away you should write at least 375 cans of food for the annual food drive. There were 119 cans donated, so you start with 119 the first week and 91 more the second week. And it says, let C represent the total number of cans that must be collected by the end of the third week. So that would be plus C. So that's your inequality. Now what I need to go ahead and do is solve this. So if I would have 119 plus 91, that would, let's see if my math is correct, it would be not 219, it would be 210 plus C is greater than or equal to 375. Check my math on that. And then if I subtract 210 from both sides, I would then get C is greater than or equal to 165 cans in that week. So the choice is C, I believe. For number 12, it says to solve and graph. I have x over 5 greater than or equal to -6. What I need to do is multiply both sides by 5 because I have that dividing by 5. What I get is x is greater than or equal to -30. I do not flip it around, the inequality symbol. I then graph it. Just put -30 down first. Then you have -29 and -31 because it gets bigger the farther left you go. I then have a filled in circle, and I go to the right because it's bigger than, greater than. Same thing, you need to solve and graph. First of all, you know that to make it easier, you want to make sure that the negative only goes with one of either the x or the 3 on top or bottom. So since it's there, I need to multiply both sides by -3, and I'm simply left with x and then 9 over here. And remember, since I multiplied both sides by -3, this flips around, left with x is greater than or equal to 9, and I get 9, 10, 8, 7, etc., and so forth, and I fill in the circle, go to the right. Okay, number 14, I'm going to do really fast. It says the French Club is sponsoring a bake sale. If their goal is to raise at least $140, how many pastries must they sell at $250 each? So 250 or $2.50 each. We'll call it P, and just solve that. Okay. For number 15, it tells me to graph and solve. First step, divide by -9. Ding, ding, ding. Remember, when you divide by a negative number, you have to flip the inequality symbol. So A is greater than 3. I graph it super fast. 3, 4, 2, open circle to the right because it's greater than. Done. Same thing with 16. Two-step though, I have to add 5 first before I do the multiplication division step. I I then take negative 2x less than 12. I then divide by negative 2. Divide by negative 2. I then get x is greater than negative 6 because the inequality symbol had to flip around. I then take negative 6, negative 5, negative 7, open circle to the right. Okay, with this problem, we did this in class for board day. What we need to do is distribute the negative 2 to the g, the negative 2 to the negative 8. So I drop down g, I drop down 4, I take negative 2 times g, gives me negative 2g, take negative 2 times negative 8, gives me positive 16, I drop down greater, I drop down 0. I then have to combine like terms, which are 1g and negative 2g. That gives me negative 1g. I then combine 4 and 16. And that gives me 20. I drop down greater, drop down 0. Now it's two-step, so I subtract 20. I subtract 20. I then get negative 1g is greater than negative 20. I then divide by negative 1. Careful, long process, but at the end of it, make sure that you do switch. So g is less than 20, and if I graph this, I put 20, 19, 21 is an open circle to the left, because it's less than. Okay, these last few just asked me to solve them. Don't graph them. So 2 plus 15d greater than or equal to 14 times d plus 2. So first of all, I distribute, and I drop this stuff down, and I get 14 times d is 14d. 14 times 2 is 28. I now have to take this 14d and somehow move it over here because it's on a different side of the equation, or inequality. So I have subtract 14d from both sides, and I get 2 plus 1d is greater than or equal to 28. I then have to move this 2 over with the numbers, moving that over there, cross that out. I then get 1d is greater than or equal to 26. And really simple, just divide by 1, but you don't even have to. And I get d is greater than or equal to 26. That's the solution. Same process, I look for distributing, doesn't happen. I look for combining like terms, nothing on the same sides. So what I do see is I see variables on both sides. I want to move this one to the left just because that's my preferred side to move stuff to. I subtract 11p, and I get negative 3p minus 20 is less than or equal to 4. I then need to add 20 to both sides, cancel out, and I get negative 3p is less than or equal to 24. I divide by negative 3, and careful, I get p is greater than or equal to negative 8. Switch around. Okay, last one before I do anything. You want to make sure you look for distributing. Doesn't happen. I look for combining like terms, and I see negative 6x and 15x. I can combine those. 15x and negative 6x together give you 9x. Drop down my negative 3. I drop down my greater than or equal to. I drop down 9x. I drop down 9. This one is actually weird because what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over here by subtracting 9x from both sides. This gives me nothing. This also gives me 0. Minus 3 is greater than or equal to 9. And then what I actually end up having is just negative 3 greater than or equal to 9. And this is weird because there's no variable. So what I need to do is decide, is negative 3 greater than or equal to 9? The answer is no. So the official answer is there are no solutions. That's kind of why I put this as the very last question to not throw you off. Okay, that was your quiz review. Showed you how to do every single problem. So make sure you pay attention.